Hello, Repl community, and welcome to the launch of our inaugural tutorial jam. I'm David Morgan. You might remember my bald bonce from 100 Days of Code or some of the other stuff that we've done live for you recently. But joining me on this launch is Brittany Perkle. Brittany is our can't speak today, our educational partnerships manager and part of the team that does 100 Days of Code. Hello, Brittany.
Hi, David. Good to see you and excited to talk with all of you today about all things tutorials.
And also on the call is one of our reps for EDU and the host of the Learning Desk podcast, the legendary Andy Colley. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I like the fact we all pretend that we haven't talked to each other for a few minutes before this and do the nice little greetings. Sorry, I'm letting everyone behind the curtain of how we set these things up now. Well, it is our fantastic tutorial jam kickoff today. But first of all three of us on this call are teachers or ex-teachers. So we're all very much used to teaching concepts to students in a really effective way. I taught for 20 years in British schools and started working full-time at Repl about 4 months ago. Since then, we've done the 100 Days of Code. And I'd say my favorite thing I've ever taught, honestly, has been PHP at A level. The 17, 18-year-olds who I've taught Python to, and then teaching them a language that's a little bit esoteric and that only me and Mark Zuckerberg seem to like, was always a bit of fun. How about you, Brittany? Do you want to give us a bit of history about you and your educational experience?
Sure. So I actually taught little kids, so different than what Andy and David taught. But I love learning from David. I feel like as an educator, you can always be a learner. The theme of this is those who can teach. And if you haven't done 100 days, you need to, because you are going to learn so much that's going to help you be able to teach others. So I love Python, but I also love P5. It's fun.
That's nice and creative, isn't it? We've loved that recently. And hopefully we're doing a workshop on that next month, Brittany. Is that right?
Yes, fingers crossed. That's what we're hoping. Yeah. So
we'll get that sorted and planned and let you know. How about you, Andy? Do you want to tell us a little bit about you? You're the only current teacher in the panel today.
I am. I've not managed to escape the classroom yet. My name's Andy Colley. I am a head of the computing department at a secondary school in Manchester in the UK. I've been teaching probably about as long as David has. And I sort of know how all you people out there who are doing 100 Days of Code for the first time and learning to program through that feel, because I converted to being a computer science teacher. So I had to learn all of this from scratch. I was 5 minutes, one page, sometimes 30 seconds ahead of the kids in my class in terms of ability level. And so I'm very, very conscious about of being a novice learner, and I know what it feels like when the ground opens up underneath you and you feel like your feet aren't touching the bottom of the pool anymore, in terms of learning how to program. I've taught in several languages, but for me it's not about the language, it's about the thinking skills that you need to develop to learn how to program, and the experience you get from doing lots of it, so that you can say, well, I've seen a problem like this before, I can apply this in this situation. So I'm big on what we in teaching call pedagogy, or pedagogy, depending on how you pronounce it, which is sort of the art, the science, the craft of how to get a concept across to learners and how to make sure it sticks in their brain so they can go away and do it without you.
I think, Andy, when we were doing Repl 101 last week, we had a question which was, how do you decide what turns into a subroutine? Basically, it was me talking about the experience and the practice of doing it over and over again. So you're absolutely right. It is the practice and the thinking, isn't it? But hopefully we can give you some top tips today on how to be in with a great chance of winning this tutorial jam, because there are good prizes up for grabs. I'm going to bring my presentation up now, and let's start having a chat about that, because what is a tutorial jam? We've never done one before, but then we've never had the tutorial feature before. The tutorial feature was built pretty much for 100 Days of Code, and it was designed to allow us to teach things all in Repl, so all in one place, so that you flit in between windows and different screens, or as my students often did. The iPad would be playing a video of me and they'd be working on the Windows computer. But the idea is to do it all in one place in a more effective way. So you guys can now use that amazing best in class feature to build your own learning experiences. And we're not going to be asking a massive amount from you. And guys, feel free to chime in as we have a look at what a tutorial jam is going to be. But these are the key points that we want to hit. But the first thing is, we don't want you to build masses and masses of things. We want you to build one single tutorial, one single lesson. Guys, what does that mean then for the thinking around that?
So David, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So I'm going to create one REPL, and then I'm going to put my entire tutorial in that one REPL, but you want me to do multiple projects. How do I do that?
Well, what we'd be looking for is to try and get people to go in. You're right, one REPL. That's all we want you to submit is one REPL. But the tutorial pane allows you to put multiple pages in and break it down into steps. So if you were teaching something like, well, let's go for the classic. If you were teaching something like how to build a bot of some kind, maybe a Discord bot or a Twitter bot or something like that, you'd have a couple of pages where you go through the skills, the key parts of it, and end up with a project that's them building the actual thing. You could also add a video of you working through that. You don't need to be in the video. It could be a video of you recording your screen and talking over it. But all those things would tie together to be one great learning experience where I could spend 20 minutes going through, learning the skills, and eventually come out of it with something meaningful. Does that make sense?
It does. I asked the chat how do people learn best, and most everybody is saying visually. So that maybe is a clue that having maybe like fix my code portions, kind of like 100 days, might be helpful. Video piece, it sounds like that's how people really learn. So that might be good too.
Absolutely. It's nice to see that. We've got lots of people saying that, haven't we? We've got lots of people saying visually. And the point of the tutorial format, the reason we have video and text in it is because people have different ideas on how they want to learn. People have different preferences. Some people will like to watch a video and ignore the text. Some people are literally the opposite, and some people like a bit of both. So it's having those options available to you and using what you think works best for what you want to teach. And I think that's key for me. Now, of course, one of the features that we'll need to use is we need to use the new .tutorial feature. We'll demo that in a few minutes. So if you are here to have a look at how that all works, we'll show you that. We'll build something live, but it must use that feature. It can't just be a REPL on its own. We also want to make sure that you're using the video pane in an interesting way. Now, Andy, unfortunately, you've had to watch all of my videos in an uncut format, haven't you? Because Andy has been working with us to do the written part of the lessons from my videos. What do you think can be done interestingly in the video pane, not just slavishly copying 100 days of code?
I think that the video pane really gives you a chance to show how you think and how you explain things and explain how you're thinking as an experienced programmer when you're building code, because a lot of that dialogue and that behind the curtains revealing the thought process is really beneficial for new learners. I don't know in the chat, but I've certainly done coding courses where it's gone, and today's output, tomorrow's variables, and then day 3, recursion. And you go, what the hell's gone on here? Because there's an absolute gulf of knowledge. Because as an expert, as someone who knows what you're talking about, it's so easy to forget that newbies don't. And new programmers don't have that library of prior experience that we talked about to solve problems. So explaining how what you're doing links to what they've learned before is really good. I think it helps you demonstrate the skill that you're trying, or the piece of code you're trying to teach in isolation. And this is the way I tend to work. And I think computer scientists are really good at this because we naturally do decomposition, don't we? We take a big problem and break it down into small parts. Absolutely. But I think that that's how I approach teaching programming. I like to have a big end goal, something useful, or what's in it for me. Let's make a Discord bot. Let's link it up to something you know already. Let's make an I'm Not a Robot program. But then what I've got to really think about is how do I take that process and break it down into individual steps, teach them one at a time, and then, and only when I've given my student practice in putting them together in using code like that, I think it's then you start to put them together to make something interesting. So I think the video can really be a place for you to explain how this part links to the next part and what's coming after that, and how it this piece of the jigsaw fits into the whole process. Whether you do that through slide design, whether you do that through diagrams. I mean, if you've got a Microsoft Surface or an iPad or something with it stylus, you could start to draw flow diagrams. You could start to annotate live, scribble on the code, show what you're doing, ring round it, anything like that that really draws attention to to a certain part of the code that you're trying to teach. I think that'd be excellent to see in a video.
I think, Andy, we've had a lot of good feedback about our solutions videos that we just started doing when things got a bit more complicated, because all those it's literally a recording of me trying to answer my own questions live. And you get to see me make mistakes. You get to see how my thinking progresses, how I debug. And we've had a lot of good feedback for that, because it just shows that you're not perfect, that, sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes you have to get your way out of holes you've built for yourself. So don't feel that you have to pop your makeup on, get in front of a camera with a nice lighting setup and a green screen like we do for 100 Days of Code. Video doesn't have to be about having a person on there. It can be about showing how you work. The other one I want to talk about,
sharing your screen just with your code. I think that's super valuable. Like Andy was saying, I think it's important to don't assume anything. Don't assume that your learners know input, or they know print, or they know a various amount of HTML tags. Like, assume that they know nothing, and that, because like Andy said, you jump around and all of a sudden by the third project, people are lost, confused, and they probably drop off. So I would say, if you think it's something that's simple, talk about it anyways. Go back to the nitty-gritty basics, because there will be somebody that will appreciate that. And secondly, I think David doing the live videos and coding and seeing his mistakes is so valuable, because it helps all of us know, like, oh, David's like an expert and he makes mistakes. So that one makes us all feel better about ourselves. But it also helps you kind of see, like, oh, these are maybe the traps and the mistakes and the bugs that I might fall into. And so feel free to show it kind of raw, show your mistakes, and it helps people learn then what they can do.
Yeah, I'd also say you don't need to, using the video in an interesting way, you don't need to be, demoing your code on a surfboard with your pet pug doing a handstand. It doesn't, it's not that sort of thing. It's,
Andy, don't give away the next 20 days of 100 Days of Code.
Yeah, well, I'm working behind the scenes. My face isn't on the camera. I've got to watch David's all his background videos, so I see it uncut. So there's 20 minutes on a video where he's angrily bashing away at some code trying to get it to work. That all gets chopped out of the main video. But yeah, it's a case of, can people learn from it? Have you thought about the sequence, the order you're going to introduce your ideas? Who is it aimed at? I can see Dawn H down on the comments has just said, who's the target audience? And I think the answer to that, if I'm right, is probably whoever you think. If you're aiming this at novice coders, you're going to break things down a lot more and be a lot more individual small parts, like I talked about earlier, than if you're aiming it at people who've got some experience with coding experience behind you. You can skip over fundamentals a bit more at that stage. You sort of removed a bit of the scaffolding for them. So be really clear about your target audience as well in your video.
And like Andy said, you can choose, like, if you want to do something more artistic and you want to kind of lean towards people that might be more interested in visual graphics, that's your audience. If you're wanting to do something much more analytical and tables based, that's your audience. So you get to decide. That's the fun part. Who do you want to target this to? Who do you think will be interested in learning this? And then that's your audience.
I mean, one of the things I picked up from the 100 Days of Code, I might be giving away an idea here, but how to be an output master. you know, how to use all the different styles of concatenation, how to be an absolute F strings Jedi. I think anyone who's coding in Python or something like that would find that invaluable. I think that'd be a brilliant idea.
You'd be surprised how many people have tweeted to me saying, I'd never heard of the 3 quotes trick before, day 2 of 100 Days of Code. So it's nice to have something there. I'm very quickly going to run through some of the other really important things that we need to do there, everyone, because it needs to be published to the community with the hashtag Tutorial Jam 2022 and also submitted to the Tutorial Jam website. I'll pop that up in the on the screen at the moment so you can all see the link to that. But we'll also pop the link in the chat if you want to go. Oh, I've popped it in there already. It's pinned to the top if you want to go to it and have a look. But the cutoff and the deadline is midnight Pacific time on November the 5th. So please do get your stuff in before then. You've got a good week to do it. And the important thing for me is that this isn't just targeted at educators. We want everyone and anyone to enter. It's really important that we get that message across. This isn't just for teachers. Teachers can knock these things out in a few minutes, but teachers will not be teaching the breadth and the exciting things that you guys are just experimenting with. Yeah. Particularly in the realm of like artistic coding and stuff like that. We want all your tutorials in interesting ways. So yeah, please don't feel that because you're not a teacher, you can't enter. Sorry, Andy, go on.
Definitely. One of the things talking to people who are out there doing this in the real world is that you've got much more experience of how this applies to what you do for a living or how this applies to your hobby or your interest, whereas we kind of run on rails in terms of we teach concepts and basic programming constructs, and we only get to the interesting applications of it sort of towards the end. So seeing what's happening out there in the real world would be brilliant. I'm looking forward to stealing a load of ideas for extracurricular clubs and coding clubs and stuff like that off from this. Sorry.
So I'll go through the prizes very quickly, and then we'll get on to some more of our content. Now, first prize is a very impressive $750, which is for the best tutorial as judged by our judging panel, which is comprised of our reps for EDU, of which Andy is one. Second prize is going to be $500 and this beautiful graphic. Third prize is $250 and this beautiful graphic. But the exciting one for me is that we also have special mention prizes. These are people that will get Repl merch. And this is my favorite prize because just like Brittany and Andy, you can wear your success and tell everyone that you got that t-shirt because you've won a prize in a tutorial exam. And it should be great as well. So they're the prizes. For one tutorial, the star prize of $750, that is absolutely amazing, I personally think. So how are we going to be grading these? Because, you know, we are teachers, so we do think about those sort of things. These are the key points we'll be looking at. So if you are thinking of a tutorial, these are the things that are worth keeping in mind. So your theme, is it clear? Is it obvious? Is it exciting? How clear your explanations are. The clearer they are, the simpler they are, the easier they are for a learner to grasp, the better. Certainly, if we can watch them and we can be like, cool, that's a great idea. That's a great way of explaining something. And we steal your ideas for use in the classroom, then you've definitely got a few ticks in that. Innovation is important. Sorry, go on, Brittany.
I just wanted to ask with clarity, would that be a good place then for me to say, this is for somebody who already has an understanding of this, this, and this. That way people don't feel confused if they maybe don't have that understanding, right? Maybe we should set the expectation a little bit so people know what to expect out of this tutorial.
Yeah. We don't want every tutorial to be a basics tutorial. If you want to do something really high end and you want to say, we'll assume you've got this level of knowledge to start with, as long as we know that, that's brilliant. But what we're looking for is the clarity of you explaining then those complex topics.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people relate really well to that, don't they? I mean, you've always heard of this is as big as 3 football fields, and that works for people because it sticks onto something they're already familiar with. It's an area the size of Wales. It's always an area the size of Wales, isn't it, David?
Only for us, Andy.
That is true.
I had to show some of my American colleagues.
See, that means something to me and David. It means nothing to Brittany.
Yeah,
So,
no clue. That is no clarity here.
So again, when you're thinking about your explanations, how are you going to make your learning sticky? How are you going to hook it onto something that your users already understand? And how are you going to avoid an area the size of Wales problem in that David knows what I mean, but Brittany doesn't?
Yeah, it is important to have that international aspect in mind. The next one we're looking at is pedagogy, which, as Andy said, is just a fancy word for like how you're going to teach it. Have you approached it in an interesting way? We've got some events happening next week to help you with those ideas if you've never heard that word before and you're not really sure what it is. So keep that in mind. Timescale as well. Is it 400 pages on a tutorial, which, I'm trying to think, when do I have time for this? Or is it 5 or 6, like a reasonable number? Think about how you're using the time available to you to teach that. And finally, obviously, how have you used the .tutorial function? How have you used the video pane? Because they are the two things that we've added. They're the things that are best in class for trying to teach on platform. And they're the things we want to talk about.
Yeah, I think
so. I'm going to move on now because
Shifty Boots here got a question, David, that says, would you recommend
I'll pop it up on the screen.
Tutorial that could have a couple of large points to take to it and then breaking them down into a ton of smaller parts? And
I don't think a ton necessarily. I think, sorry, Andy, like my first thought is I wouldn't break them down to tiny little steps, but you have multiple pages. So as much as you think is reasonable in an individual page, what were you going to say, Andy?
I was going to say, don't neglect the tutorial markdown pages, because that is where you can really break up your learning into small sections. Having been the person writing the tutorial markdown pages for the last few weeks, it really is a case of you can isolate individual skills on a page. And if you do that first, then you've got a run through, almost a script for your video, so that you can refer to this page in the tutorial or this page in the tutorial. You can put more examples.
We do a little backwards, don't we? We do the video first and then write the content.
Writing, yeah. You could even start with big picture, kind of work backwards at the beginning. Hey, this is what you're going to learn. This is what you're able to do by the end. Let's break it down. And then you kind of start and then you build your way up. I think code snippets are super valuable. Even sometimes broken code or showing errors, I think a lot of people learn through editing, not just starting from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the stuff I've done on 100 Days of Code, it really is, the majority of it is code snippets with comments or explanations about what's going on in there. So you can see the code and start to have an idea about how it'll work. It's that and niche 80s musical jokes, isn't it, really? But
that's because we're a certain age, Andy.
Yeah, if you see something on one of the text pages and you're thinking, I have no idea what that means, it's funny to me, and that's all that matters.
So just keep reading, right? We'll just have to skip that.
Yeah. If you need to Google the references, that's fine. I suppose it's worth saying as well that Brittany was the one doing the writing before Andy took over. So they've both done that same job of having to watch 20 minutes of videos of me scratching my head and trying to code and trying to make something reasonable in text form from that. So they're both very good at that part of writing the tutorials and synthesizing it down. I did want to quickly sort of flashback, because I've got James waiting, who's a winner of one of our previous events at EdFest, which was a 3-day conference for educators that we ran in the summer. We ran a curriculum jam. Now, a curriculum jam was bigger in scope than this because it involved doing multiple lessons. We had 3 winners from that. We had James Abela, who did a course on Python with real data, which we're launching today. Base 58, who've done a course on getting started with Bitcoin. They'll be launching at some point next week or the week after. And Mission Encodable, who are 2, am I right in saying 15-year-olds? Who have set
14, 15. Yeah, they have their own 15? Startup. I want to be like them when I grow up.
Harry and Anna, we've interviewed them for the podcast. You sort of look at them age 15 and think, wow.
Their curriculum is hilarious. Dad jokes. I'm super excited about it. Yeah.
They won with APIs and Python. So you can see the sorts of things that have won previous competitions. And we'll have a chat to James now to talk to him a little bit about how he felt about winning and some strategies that maybe you can use. Hello, James. How are you?
It's great. Wonderful to be here.
This is James Abella, by the way. James Abella is one of the winners of our mini curriculum jam, where he's produced a fantastic curriculum, which is Python with real data. So accessing real APIs, pulling in weather data and information about events in history. It's a brilliant curriculum. So James, one of the things that I wanted to start with, since you've already won one of our education themed jams, tell us about what makes a good learning experience.
I think what makes a really good learning experience is if it's got some relevance to the students in front of you. And it doesn't have to be 100% relevant, but students have to see how it could be used, how it could be fun, how it could be interesting. And I always think the best lessons have a sense of play.
Well, that's interesting, a sense of play. So a bit of fun, a bit of silliness in there?
Yeah, I mean, we all remember our fantastic science lessons where we experimented, we tried things go right, they go wrong, and all of those results are respected. And I think that really helps. You're going to try something, you're going to debug it, you're going to have fun, and things will work. But if we don't try, have that failure, that first attempt in learning, they don't get a sense of achievement when they do actually achieve something.
Fantastic. So it would be brilliant if the entries that you guys provide for our tutorial jam have a little bit of fun, have a bit of levity. I like that anyway. You've probably seen 100 lines of code. A bit of silliness is well in my wheelhouse. But tell us about your curriculum. I'll bring up the screen and we'll have a look at what you've produced as your entry for the last curriculum jam. And it's there, right, the newest entry on our curriculum hub page. It's there, Python with real data. Let's go into it and we'll have a look. Talk to us about what you've done and why.
Okay, so we've made 2 projects for this, and the first project is really to make sure you've got the skills before we let you loose on a real server with real data that can go really badly wrong. So the first one is about days that shook the world, days that changed everybody's experience in the world. And it's a great opportunity to combine a bit of history with some computer science, but also these are days that absolutely change the world in so many ways. And it's a great way for you to play with the data, have something that's really interesting and you can play with, but have a little bit of stability. We know what those results are going to be. So that can kind of be the tutorial level. It is the level 1 of the Sonic or the Mario, where we've kept you on the reins a little bit so that we can make sure you're okay. And then the second level is to really enable you to have a project that is completely personal to you. I live in Kuala Lumpur. People live in London, people live in the US, San Francisco, South America, people from anywhere in the world, even as far down as Antarctica, up into the Arctic Circle, can find weather close to them, maybe within 10 to 20 miles. If you're in Canada, probably a bit further than that because it's quite a lot of space. But, you're going to be able to find things that are relevant to you, weather that's relevant to you, and then you're going to be able to have a play with real data and see how a server works. And I think that's really powerful, that you can see that it's a very short step up there from what real people, real programmers are doing. We have simplified it a little bit because we're trying to aim this at fairly novice programmers and giving you some functions and help. But if you don't like that, get rid of it, do what you like with it. And I think that's part of the fun.
I think one of the reasons that James won our mini curriculum jam was because of how relevant the project is to everybody. Everyone understands that they need to know about the weather, and being able to pull it in from a local source and play around with it is great and really feels like you're actually doing something. It is a fantastic curriculum, James. Look, I've had the pleasure of reviewing it over the last couple of months as you've been producing it. And I can say I've really enjoyed building some of the projects as well. But interestingly, you've actually used the tutorial feature in some of your projects, even though we hadn't quite released it. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about why you've used that, where you've used them, and what it was good for?
Well, I think what's really fantastic and what I love about Repl is they know that not everybody's going to be on an amazing, super high def machine. And the tutorials are fantastic because they're really respectful of the space, the real estate you've got. But also the real killer feature of it is that you've got these floating videos. So if a student needs a little bit more support, a little bit more scaffolding, they can use the video. Students who don't want to, don't have to, and you can make it appear, disappear, put it where you like on your screen. And I think that's just a brilliant way to really help with it. It is a tutorial, right? So you've got a text tutorial, you've got a video tutorial, and you've got all of that together. So where I thought it wasn't so obvious and you were going to have to play with things a little bit, I've done a video tutorial, because I think that just really helps you to understand what's going on when you can see the visuals.
Yeah, I think the powerful thing as well is that it's all integrated, isn't it? I mean, the
Yeah.
reason that we've had loads of people reach out to us and say, wow, how do we use these tutorials, is because it's in the workspace. It's in your editor. You're not flipping between windows. You're not getting distracted suddenly by a tweet coming in. Everything's together so you can focus on the learning.
Yeah, and that is fantastic. And as I say, it just lays out everything out perfectly. So I think that's a brilliant new feature, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. So much so I snuck my way into the beta.
And we've had a few people like that, don't worry.
Yeah.
One of the things worth pointing out is that the curriculum content is available for Teams for EDU. So it is aimed at teachers using it and sending it out to their students. Although, hopefully, once we start rolling out more tutorial features, we can turn it into a course that everyone can enroll in and use in the near future. So if you're desperate to see James's work, but you're not on a team for EDU, don't worry. We'll be getting to you as soon as we possibly can. I think my final question for you, James, and thank you so much for your time, but my final question to you is, if you were to enter this jam, and I mean, you're perfectly able to enter this jam, of course, as a previous winner. But if you were to enter, and bear in mind the limitations of this jam is it's one single REPL, one single tutorial, so a couple of pages of tutorial content and a video, what would you teach? What would you enter into the jam?
That is a tough question. But I will say that the weather one did start off as exactly that. And I think real data, the power of Repl is actually the fact that you can go straight onto the internet. You can use links. You can pull in JSON files from anywhere. So I think that's a really powerful thing, and something you can't do in a standard IDE that's on a standalone machine. So trying to look for those opportunities to use the internet to your advantage and make a lesson where you're grabbing data or you're playing with data. So that would be my advice, is use the power of Repl and use the advantages of it to really make your lesson sing.
Absolutely. Don't just teach for loops or data structures if you can help it. Do something exciting. Or if you are going to teach that, do it through the medium of something a bit more exciting, like weather data.
Yeah, and you've got videos, you've got all sorts of things going on, and Python is so powerful with handling all sorts of data. You know, you can use any context, so why not use something that's fun and interesting?
Well, thank you very much, James, for talking to us. We'll hope that all our entrants into the jam take your advice on board, and hopefully I'll be talking to some of them in a few weeks' time in the same position as you as a winner. But thanks very much. Brilliant. And if you would like to see James's curriculum, it's available now in the Curriculum Hub. It's called Python with Real Data, and there's some amazing things that it teaches you with real actual API calls to real actual data that will be relevant to you. James, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Well, we're back from that, guys, and I wanted to use this opportunity to do a very quick tutorial. So we'll very quickly run through and show you how to build a tutorial. So I've got Repl here, and I'm going to create a brand new REPL. What language should we do it in? Because this works in any language. Go on, something esoteric. What should we build?
Should we do Rust? Because that's what Hugo was talking about in the chat.
Rust, I have no idea of Rust, so hopefully Hugo can help us out.
Yeah, so hopefully, it will not be a tutorial that we will be creating for real. So we need Hugo.
So I'll make this public and hopefully share it with everyone. But all we need to do to make a tutorial is we need to make a folder named .tutorial. And you'll see straight away there, the tutorial pane popped up saying no tutorials found. That's because there's nothing in that folder yet. So we've got to get back to it and start adding some files. The tutorial folder works through just a series of markdown files. It'll put them in alphabetical order. So the best thing to do is to put them with numbers on it. So I'm going to do 01.md for my first page. I'm just going to put some markdown in there that I've preferred earlier. Now, the important thing to remember is the first level heading of each markdown page is going to be what we see in the table of contents on the tutorial. I'm on the second page. There's my tutorial pane for a second, and paste something in there. I know what you're thinking, it's a bit like Blue Peter if you're British. Yeah, here's what I made earlier. Add a third page. And again, you take your time writing this content. Just remember that first level heading is really important. You can, of course, add images. You can add links. You can even embed things like videos in the markdown itself. But that's not the exciting bit, is it? We want a floating tutorial pane going on. I've got one more page to do.
We can also do code snippets too, right, David? That people.
Oh yeah, code snippets.
How we paste it.
It supports all of our Markdown features. So code snippets are really good because it'll put it in with a copy and paste button straight away, or copy button straight away. So you don't need to be worrying about, oh, how do I get somebody to format the code correctly? Whatever, it'll all be there and working nicely. So if I bring up my tutorial pane now, hopefully, there we go. I'll just hide my file pane. We've got a tutorial generated from that with a table of contents built from, I haven't put my heading in there properly, obviously. So maybe I want to go into that one and have a look. So let me just bring up my files and very quickly go back to that one. Was it 3? Was it this one? It might be number 5. Let's have a look. Let's bring tutorial back up. I'll close it down now. Try and do this quick is never the best. There we are. Yeah, there we go. So we've got them all back in there now. And I can move about. I can move between them. You'll see it's loading my images there as well. So it's a really, really nice way of splitting that up. But the thing you've come here for is probably not the text tutorial style because it's Markdown files. It's very straightforward. By the way, all this is available in our documentation linked from the Tutorial Jam website if you want to be doing something with that.
One thing about code snippets before you go on to the exciting stuff, though, David, because it does support pretty much any language you like. So all you need is 3, what are they called? They're almost apostrophes, but on an angle.
The angled quotes, aren't
they?
So
I mean,
on a Mac keyboard, it's bottom left.
Mac keyboard is bottom left. For me, on my Windows keyboard, it is top left, just to the left of the 1. So you have 3 of those, and then you type the name of the language you want. Like
so what, then you have Rust in there?
Yeah, and then you finish that, and then you put your code in, and then you finish it with 3 more of those same angled quotes. I really should have researched what they were called before we started this, shouldn't I? But
angled quotes, that works.
Yeah, it looks good.
Angled quotes, and we'll go with angled quotes. If that's not what they were called, that's what they are called now.
And then there's syntax highlighting for that language, which is the nice thing. I'm going to get rid of that because I'm going to share this one in a minute. But let's put in a video file. And the way we put in a video file is really, really easy. We need a JSON file. I'm going to call it video, if I can spell, video.json. And within that JSON, all we need to have is one entry. We're going to have embed URL. The URL like that? Yeah, I think so. If this doesn't work, I'll just copy and paste the proper one in. And then we want
outside your parentheses.
Yeah, that's an important one.
I always put it wrong, so it won't work if it's not exactly right. Syntax matters.
If you're copying from YouTube, the best one to bring in is an embed URL, and that should be in quotes, shouldn't it?
Yes.
There we go. So that will bring in a YouTube embedded video, but also lots of other types of video do work, and like things like Loom and Wistia and things like that will work. Try it out, see if it pops up, and everything should be okay. And all we should need to do is reload this, and our video pops up. And that's pretty much it. We are done. We can, if you'd like, very easily, if I move this back now to my first page in Rust, so it loads that, I can now publish that to the community, and that could be my entry. In fact, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to get the URL for that and pop that in the chat. So if you would like to see a tutorial in action, if you would like to go and fork that to get started, you're more than welcome to. And that contains all the instructions on how to make a tutorial very, very quickly. That tutorial pane, you remember?
For that, David.
Go on, Andy.
One other quick tip. You may well find yourself developing the code that you're going to use for your tutorial and your code snippets in the main.py file or the Rust file, the main Rust file that you've got. Make sure before you submit that you edit that code so that it's either blank or you've given the user the starter code that they want, because otherwise it comes in and they've got all the answers right there.
There you go. Behind the scenes hack right there. Make sure you clear out.
I haven't made that mistake.
No, we haven't either, Andy, don't worry. But it does happen. So that's a very quick way of doing it, and please go and play with it. It's you can put that in any REPL in any language, and because Repl pretty much supports Infinity languages, we've got a tutorial function that you can embed in Infinity languages. Whatever you want to teach, you can. Those that can, teach. And let's see if you do that too. Now, as you all probably know, we developed the tutorial feature to support the 100 Days of Code course that we're currently rolling out. And we've just got to day 50 something, Brittany, yesterday. What did we release yesterday?
54. We are live,
54.
halfway there.
We're getting there now. Soon you'll have all 100 days and you can watch my bald bonds for all of that time if you want. That's a decent amount of video and writing we've done for that. So well done, team. Good. We've done well there. But
as the face of 100 Days, David, you're getting a lot of love in the comments as well.
Oh, thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Obviously, yes. As the face, and there's a lot of face, as you can see. It goes all the way to the back. So that's probably quite good. But we don't want you guys to produce 100 days of code. We want you to produce one day or one tutorial, and it doesn't have to be in our format. It just has to use the tutorial and the video. But I've got Jeff waiting on the line to have a chat with me now. Jeff works at Repl and has always found learning to code to be something he wanted to do, but has never quite managed to stick with the course. But he's stuck with 100 days. So we're going to go and have a quick chat to Jeff now and see what's sticky for him about that course and exactly what ideas you can steal from 100 days for your tutorial jam entry. So I'm here now with Jeff Burke, who's our BizOps manager. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, David. Thanks for having me.
Now you a lot today. Jeff's been tweeting about his experience with 100 Days of Code, so I thought it'd be really nice to talk to him because the tutorial format was built really for 100 Days of Code, and we've really want everyone else to use it. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about your journey learning to code.
Yeah, it's kind of been something I've always wanted to do. I actually went to a school where we really didn't even have computer science, and I've always been on the technical side interested. And I probably started and stopped coding at least 10 separate times, from the CS50 course to a bunch of other ones. And so, yeah, when 100 Days of Code came out and I was working at Repl, I was like, there's no better fit than for me to do this. Plus, I'm able to give feedback on it and feel like it's also contributing in my day job. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I think I'm on day 41 as of right now. So I'm excited.
Jeff is very much the secret sauce. He's one of the first lines of feedback from people that are actually learning it. So he gets all the rough edges out before you guys see it. So, Jeff, what was, apart from working here, what's been particularly sticky for you about the tutorial format?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is with it embedded, it's so much easier to stay in the flow. So I think a great example is I mute Slack or something like that, or notifications. And then I'm able to just kind of be in there and not move. Whereas in the past, okay, you have a screen with the YouTube video open up on the left-hand side. Maybe an ad ends up jumping in or something that kind of distracts you. Or when you go back to follow, the instructor as you're listening to it, you see Twitter on the right, you open that and change. Whereas, and there are many points where it kind of gets disjointed, and as somebody who's learning, that's something that is enough for me to not really learn quick enough and not see the output. So having the place in which you run the code and having the video there and being able to mute everything else and stay within that self-contained environment has been really, really huge.
And what do you find yourself using more? Do you use the video more, the tutorial pane more, or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, I use the tutorial pane a little bit more. I think probably the way I typically follow it, and this is probably feedback I haven't given internally, so maybe you'll be taking it in real time, but I usually watch the first probably 2-3 minutes of the video, basically until you get to the first break point. And then from there, with the common errors and stuff, I then just try and do it myself. And if it's going well and I can debug the whole thing by myself by getting to the end, and that's probably the last I watch of the video until maybe the solution at the end. But usually start video, then jump to the tutorial pane and kind of march through accordingly.
Do you find the solution helps if you're having a particularly difficult day and you're a bit stuck?
The solution video or the solution code or all of it?
Well, either really.
Yeah, the video is huge. I try and watch that before going to the code because the instant reaction is, okay, there have been a couple where I've gotten stuck and you battle with it a little bit, but then at some point, then I want to kind of walk through it. And the good thing with the video is as you're kind of adding pieces, then ideally I get 1 or 2 chunks that's, oh, I didn't do that. Now let me try and redo this with that new bit of information. And then you're able to fill the rest. Whereas if you just get the block of code, and I've done this a couple times admittedly, it's very quick to just copy and paste it in there, mark as complete and move on. Whereas with the video, it's kind of rolling out in real time. So that's been super helpful.
We've all been there. If only Stack Overflow was real-time video of people explaining what they were trying to teach, it would be a benefit to us all.
Yep.
So penultimate question then, what's been your favorite project so far? Which day stands out to you as being the one you've enjoyed the most?
Yeah. So I think maybe it's super simple, but the Star Wars name generator one was really fun. And that was fun too, because it was so easy to share and be kind of get a laugh with people. So it actually came at a time where we'd released the mobile app, which was awesome because the mobile app makes it super easy to copy and text it out. So I actually just sent it to 5 or 6 friends and was like, look, I'm looking at a program, like, what's your Star Wars name? And I don't know if they found it as amusing as I did, but that was a pretty fun one. And that was also a lesson that I was able to do without having to look at the solution at all. So I felt even more accomplished.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I know you mentioned that one to me before, so I'm glad it gave you a bit of a laugh. And last question is, if you could teach anything in a tutorial, or I suppose if you wanted to learn anything, what would you submit for the tutorial jam?
Ooh. That's a good question. I would want a really good tutorial on making some type of bot. For me, it would be a Twitter bot. So I would love to go learn how to make a Twitter bot that does something interesting, and then have a tutorial walking people through how to do that. That's one that's super interesting to me.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, because remember, it's going to be just one tutorial, so one REPL, so everything together, and a bot is a nice short project that you can put together.
Yeah,
well, Jeff, thank you very much. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I hope you continue all the way through to day 100, and hopefully some of your insight can rub off on our entrants, and hopefully we'll get a nice Twitter bot tutorial for you. I'll send it your way if it comes in.
I hope so too. I will make it to day 100. That is a promise. And it's fun to finally be in the video with you, David, because I've watched hours of you giving videos, and now I'm finally part of it. So thanks.
Well, thank you very much. And we do appreciate you coming on. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks to Jeff there for coming and talking to us about experience with 100 days of code. A lot of what he said there is really, really important, and it can give you some ideas for what will work really, really well. Sticky content is what you want. I've brought up Jeff's favorite 100 days day here in the background while he was talking then, which is the Star Wars name generator. And actually the content, what they're actually learning there, is traditionally a little bit dry. Would you guys agree? String slicing is not the most exciting topic in the world, is it?
Yeah.
No, definitely not. It's one of those things that's super useful and that is used all the time. But it's like a lot of programming. It happens behind the scenes. Users don't need to worry about it. We take care of that stuff, and it just works for people. So getting people to appreciate what's going on and then getting them to see they can use it to create something funny or amusing or cool, that's the art. That's the absolute art.
Yes, 100%. Pick something that's engaging, like we heard from James and Jeff, both of them picking something that's real life, that's fun. Take those dry, boring topics and make them exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, the fun part about this is the challenge, I think. And we are very keen at Repl about project-based learning and having something meaty to dig your teeth into at the end. So having a challenge like that is well worth it, because the thing Jeff remembered from that lesson was not necessarily the skill. It was not necessarily the syntax even. It was just that he had a bit of fun sharing a Star Wars name generator with his friends. And of course, with Repl being very easy to share code, and with the mobile app now, it's very easy to share these things with your friends. So when you're thinking of the tutorial you want to build, think about that social nature. Think about, is it something that people will want to share, and they'll remember it more. I'm very quickly going to, before we move on,
one more tip about that, David.
Go on, Andy.
Just ping it back to the page. There you go. If you can see in the tutorial pane there, the little examples of code that are in line with the text is scroll up a bit, yeah, where it says input and split. They're formatted as code, and you can do that super easily with one of those angle quotes. If you put a single angle quote in and then put your code in and then close it with a single angle quote, rather than having a whole big code snippet, you can put individual examples in line with your text, which is again a really useful thing because it just jumps off the page to you. Helps make it a lot easier to read for your tutees.
I think one of Brittany's innovations, which I really love, are these little hints, just using the spoilers tag to hide bits and pieces. So the stuff that would otherwise be too much information, if you're stuck, there's somewhere to go.
Yeah, and if you do want to highlight mistakes or things that people commonly get wrong, like we've been doing in 100 Days of Code, the best place to start is by just keeping a log of all the code, all the mistakes you made when you were writing the code, and sticking them in there as you go along. What did I do wrong? Oh. I mean,
Even if they were really, really simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
like I'm spelling it wrong all the time. It's
the simpler the better.
really
I mean, we're teachers, so we've got years of experience of this is what people get wrong when I teach selection. This is what people get wrong when I teach variables. But if you're making the mistakes, chances are everybody else is as well.
I'll just very quickly show everyone where to go to submit, because we have a lot of questions about that in the chat, and we're about to get into the Q&A section, so I'll do this first. This is the Tutorial Jam site. I'll pop the link up on the screen very, very quickly. Where is it? Here we go. There. It's also in the chat, but that's where you need to go to submit. As well as the ability to submit, we've also got the recording of this live stream. We've got the information about what you need to do. We've got a video and text documentation about how to make the tutorial if you've missed it or if you weren't paying attention. There's also some rules which are worth reading. But if you want to submit your tutorial, you click the button, you authorize with Repl. So it's one submission per Repl account. And if you want to submit as a team, you're more than welcome to. You'll need to give me your Repl tutorial link and your email address that we can contact you at afterwards, and click submit. That's all you need to do. And we'll have it and we'll get marking it. But next on our to-do list is Q&A.
What do submissions do? How long do people have to do this?
Oh, sorry, yes. So you've got a week. So a week from today. In 1 week's time at midnight Pacific time, so that's the 5th of November, I believe.
Yes.
Is going to be the cutoff date for submissions. Anything submitted past midnight Pacific time won't count. So get your submissions in this week. Send them in as quick as you can. Get them built, get them polished, and get them submitted in plenty of time. Don't leave it to the last minute to submit, because we all know what happens when you leave it to the last minute. We've all been there, don't worry. So Q&A now. If you've got any questions that we haven't answered, please pop them in the chat and we'll go and have a quick look. You're absolutely right, Dawn. No pressure, just 1 week. But remember, it's 1 day. It's one tutorial, one thing that's interesting. It doesn't have to be 100,000 words and a 20-hour video. One thing, one small project taught well is what we want to see here. Okay. So we did have some questions earlier on, Brittany. You mentioned, so I'm just trying to find where that was.
Shifty Boo had a question about, do we think that teaching all of Bash is too much? It's not as big as email, but it is quite big. So they want to know back on that. Going off of what you just said, David, I would say that is a little much. Honestly,
giving yourself a lot of work there.
A little bit. You kind of get people, you get them excited and give them a little taste, and then they're going to want to go off and learn more on their own.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes that's better when you don't do everything.
Yeah, I like what Brittany said before about that idea about starting off. Decide who you're trying to teach. Is this a novice thing? Is it an intermediate thing? Is it an advanced thing? Then think of a thing to make that uses novice skills or intermediate skills or advanced skills. And then, maybe 2 or 3 skills that we can combine to create our thing, our Star Wars name generator or whatever it is. And then how are you going to break that down? That, it's achievable then within a week. If you're going to do a whole programming language in a week, I don't know how you're going to sleep. I mean, good luck to you. Good chance.
Absolutely. I said the thing for me is think of one thing that a lot of people would like to achieve in Bash. Teach the core skills to achieve that thing and make that your project. And then your last page in the tutorial could be, here's a list of other commands you might want to know. But the key part of it should be learning one thing to one end result. Because Shifty, as the other guys have said, if you try and, I know Bash is a smaller language, but you try and teach it all in one tutorial, and your fingers are going to be bleeding typing on that keyboard for the next week constantly. What other questions did we have that we might want to pick up?
We had a pinned one, a starred one from Hashim Ali.
Let's have a look. Yes.
In the
Bring that
start
up.
section, there we go. Data structures and
this-
algorithms.
And now me and Andy are both smiling at this one probably because these are the things that we have to teach regularly in our classrooms. And actually, they are quite interesting. If I think I said the number one thing that people teachers struggle with is finding good examples of data structures that are not just let's stick in some people or let's do a video game again. So if you can think of good ideas for data structures with good projects that are exciting, 100% go for this.
Again, I mean, are we talking, Mike? I've got follow-up questions on that. Are we talking how to search a data structure?
Mhm.
Could you then, with Python, go right? We're going to learn linear search. Here's how to code linear search. Here are the skills you need, and then Python does if item in list. Does it for me? Marvelous. So,
Yeah, I think my advice would be to maybe take that down. Like data structures and algorithms is a lot. So pick something, a nugget of that, and really like hone in on it and find a really cool, engaging project. That's going to really teach it in a way that people are going to be like, wow, I didn't even realize like I was learning because this was super fun and engaging and you explained it well.
And if you can do that, then tell me how you did it because I'll write a book.
You'll steal the ideas from me.
That's the magic, isn't it? When you find a lesson like that, it's like, oh yes, I've got it. No, I just need that for everything.
Sorry, Brittany. There was a few other questions that I just wanted to make sure we answered. One of them was asked beforehand, which is, do I need to include a video? You don't, but how you use the video is part of the criteria by which we'll be judging. So if you don't include a video, you're probably reducing your chances by just not having one. So you don't have to, but it helps.
Dawn H is asking about what we're going to use the tutorials for once the submission and the comp's over.
Well, that is currently being worked out, but I think our aim is that the tutorials will form part of the Learn page. So currently the Learn page on Repl is a couple of starter tutorials, 100 days of code, and some links to our partners. We would want to be featuring your tutorials on that Learn page so that people coming to the site to learn would see yours as brand new content that they could go in and they could use. And this is why we're looking for the best 3 and some honorable mentions with interesting stuff. But we are working on that at the moment. That's where we hope to be by the next fortnight. Fingers crossed.
and Shifty Boo, stay tuned. I feel like are we like people internally listening to what David and I talk about and they bring it on in their questions? Stay tuned. That's what I'm going to say to that last question about releasing a flowchart. We hear you. We realize you love 100 days and you love content, and so we want you to be a part of it through this jam. And David and I are thinking we're our wheels are turning on how we can make sure that you guys feel like you can add content and you can be a learner and a teacher.
So that's where we're going with that. So I think that's about it. I think somebody asked me, does it need to follow the style of 100 days? And definitely not. The style of 100 days is for a certain type of learner in a certain type of way.
If you can write better jokes, please write better jokes.
Andy, anyone can write better jokes than me. Don't worry. I've already fired my writing team for jokes. Don't worry, they weren't working very well for me. But no, if you can, you do the style that suits you. We want the best tutorials, not things that copy what we do. You can copy us if you want. By all means, it's the sincerest form of flattery, but we'd prefer you to do something that's in your own style and that looks pretty cool. I certainly don't want anybody shaving their heads like this just to record some video, because this is genetics, not a statement. I just want to point that out to you all.
Yeah, we don't any fan. It's not fan fiction, is it? Let's not go there. We've got a couple more questions actually. Hashim's asking about if he makes a tutorial about sorting algorithms. Yes, please do. I'm teaching that at GCSE. That'd be amazing.
It's not too
Hashim,
you make it engaging. I mean, I think anything can be boring, right? Like, or anything can be interesting. Like 100 Days of Code could also, if we didn't have these fun projects and real life application, it could be boring. So I think that's relative, and I think you can make it engaging. Think out of the box. Something think about a project. What project can you do that's going to be fun and engaging to a lot of people that involves sorting algorithms?
Yeah, there's a famous YouTube video, isn't there, of Hungarian dancing with sorting algorithms. I'm sure we've all used in lessons before.
Yeah, we've all used that.
So,
Decoded is asking about what's the minimum age to join the jam. Is there a minimum age?
I'm not sure if we do have one. I'll check the documentation now. Hold on, give me a second. Fill some time for me.
I will fill at that because the reason Repl sent me this T-shirt, and I've just noticed there's a bit of stretch in it, so I don't know what you're trying to say, but the reason you sent me this Reps for Edu T-shirt is because I use Repl. I'm a teacher, and so I'm happy to help and answer any questions in and around pedagogy or ideas or so on. I am Mr. A. Colley on Twitter, and I've just, going kicking and screaming into the 21st century, and I've joined the Discord as well, so you can tag me with questions and hit me up like that. I'm happy to help in any way I can. Did that fill enough time, mate?
Filled perfectly, because it was a really obvious answer in retrospect, but it's because of data protection laws and all that sort of stuff. It's over 13, so 13 or over. But do check the rules, which are on our tutorial jam page. It's right at the top of that. Apologies for that, because I'm sure there's a load of people that are disappointed with that, but that is like legal compliance. That's when we're allowed to collect your information. So
write your tutorial. Definitely don't get your parents to sign up for an account.
I'm saying nothing for legal reasons. Right. Okay. So
do we have some like top 5 tips for everybody?
We do have some top 5 tips. Thanks for bringing us back on top. Now, we've put our heads together and come up with sort of 5 tips from what we've talked about today that we think are useful. And so number 1 is talk about something you are knowledgeable about that you're going to enjoy. We have a week to do this. If you try and learn something new and then you get bored by it, or something you don't really like, you're going to struggle to bring the passion and the enthusiasm that you want. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes, David will not be doing a REST tutorial, for example, because that, and neither will I. So yes, pick something that you already know a lot about and that you enjoy. Don't pick something that you don't find interesting, because how are you going to make other people excited about it?
Absolutely. Number 2, don't assume anything. And I think this is the big thing that all teachers learn when they're starting out. Somebody always misses something you think is obvious, and you bring a lot of expertise to anything you're trying to teach. Assume they know nothing, because then you'll teach everything. Andy, how do you feel about that one?
It's the old joke, isn't it? I taught my dog to whistle. Go on, then let's hear him. I said I taught him. I didn't say he'd learnt it. Just because you think you've taught it doesn't mean that what you've said has been received in exactly the same way. It's like sending an email to a colleague when it's better to go and have a conversation, because a lot can be lost in translation. And again, this is where the video really comes in, as well as the tutorial pages, because you can get your point across with expression, with tone of voice, and all those extra bits of communication that you don't get just through text.
Number 3 is be entertaining. Sorry, Brittany.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, set the expectation of this is for somebody who's an intermediate learner and already knows input and print or whatever it is, so that way people know what to expect.
Absolutely. And if you're doing something on Python, you could even set it in terms of where they should be in 100 days, even as an easy rule of thumb of content they can access easily.
On the first 20 days of 100 days of Python, then this tutorial's for you. Yeah, that's great.
Number 3 is one that I've always tried to live by in my lessons, is be entertaining. Nobody wants to be bored to tears in a tutorial. People want to be entertained, even if that's doing silly jokes, constantly referencing your lack of hair, or whatever you need to do to make a concept fun. That's part of the appeal.
Spoiler alert, you'll hear David's going to sing. And maybe you've already listened to this day, but he's going to sing. That's entertaining, right?
Yeah, it's one of the 100 days. I'm not going to tell you which one. You have to watch them all the way through.
Maybe we should say make it memorable then. Just because it's memorable doesn't mean it's a nice experience.
Poor Andy had to listen to this. You remember in advance. One take though, Andy. One take.
One take.
Andy plays. Andy's in a band, so he's got more musical nous than me. So take his criticism to heart.
means I own the van.
That's all right. Yeah, that makes sense. Number 4 is really important, is breaking it down into small steps. The reason you've got multiple pages in the tutorial pane is so you can sequence those events. You can say, once you've got this skill, now try this, now try this. Ta-da! You can build a Discord bot. That's a really important thing, the sequencing of the learning.
And markdown files, you have level 1 heading, level 2, level 3. Feel free to use those subheadings and break things down further, or use emojis. Every time, you've probably noticed in 100 days, every time you see the light bulb, a hint is coming. So make it predictable, where people can expect a certain type of setup, so that way they kind of can learn. It's all very clear.
And the last one, projects and examples that have real world applications. That's what James was saying when he talked earlier on, one of the winners of our curriculum jam. He got on so well, and you'll see that all those curriculum jam winners got on so well because they picked a project that wasn't just abstract. You can see exactly how you can apply it. Guys, do you agree with that?
100%. Yeah, I think that goes back to make it engaging. You can totally make sorting algorithms engaging. Do something real world. I did something with my Amazon spending in Python. Maybe not engaging to someone else, but to me, it was a real world application. So it was meaningful.
You've said it all. Make it meaningful. If it means something to people, they'll put the effort.
Which is the most important thing, I think. Now, there are some events happening this week, and there will be some secret other events popping up, hopefully. We've got a live session. These sessions are normally for teachers, by the way, but please, since you're trying to develop your skills at explain things clearly, they might be of some use to you. We've got a live session on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, or 8 p.m. GMT. Is it GMT now? Yeah, we are. We're going back to GMT, aren't we, Andy, in the UK? And that is with Bram Morenis. He's going to be talking about collaborative flow charting and how that can be used to build code more properly and with fewer mistakes. Then Wednesday, Andy's session, which he did a few months ago for us now, back in May, is going to be rewatched. So we're going to play that back out. So that won't be live. So if you're asking questions and nobody's answering, please don't worry too much. This is a recording, but that's a really, really good workshop. It's about a concept called PRIM, which is a way of teaching programming that is research backed and educationally sound, and that's a really interesting thing if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, it's a great scaffold for novices. And again, I know Absolutely. It's not live, but if you message me on Twitter or on Discord or something like that, I'll try and pick up as much as I can as that goes out.
Thank you, Andy. On Friday, then, we're going to replay out Tony Scullion's session she did with us last month, which was all about peer programming and group projects and how to design peer programming group projects to work best in the classroom. So if you are thinking of doing a tutorial that would be good for somebody to use multiplayer with, well, go for it. You could teach them how to use multiplayer in the tutorial, which would be pretty cool as well. All of those are going out next week. I'm also hoping to have some content out on Tuesday and Wednesday, all on the YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe and click that little bell icon. See, I got the plug in. You knew I would. Yeah. And you'll be notified whenever we go live with anything, particularly over the next week, to help you with your tutorial jam preparations. So the only thing left to say is thank you to Brittany and thank you to Andy for coming along. It was only meant to be an hour, but we've gone quite long, haven't we? So thank you guys, and thanks for all the time you've put into this.
You get a bunch of teachers together, what do you say?
Oh yeah. We could have gone 2 hours. I think, Andy, when we did our live session a couple of months ago, I think that could have gone significantly longer, couldn't it?
Once you start me talking, people have already figured you probably can't stop me. There's one more question here from Decoded. I mentioned ask me questions on Discord. I am, again, at Mr. A. Colley, Colley, pretty much everywhere.
I think you've got a number on Discord, though, Andy.
Do I have a number? See, I don't know these things.
Yeah, it's newfangled, isn't it, for us? It's name and number.
I've answered a couple of questions in the 100 Days of Code thread on Discord. So just scroll down there and find me somewhere there.
Decoded, if you're struggling with the Discord, the best thing for us to do would be to send you off to support for that. click the question mark on Repl and ask there, and we should be able to help you out there. Unfortunately, none of us are admins in the Discord to help out. Sorry. So we'll try and get you sorted, but go to support and ask for that. So please do get building. Please do enter the tutorial jam. Your key things to remember is that it's 1 tutorial per Repl account. You must use the hashtag tutorialjam2022 when you publish it to the community and send your link to us using the web page. That is really, really important, because if you don't do that, you will not be in with a chance of winning the prize. So just as a reminder, this is the address you need to go to. It's pinned in the chat. But once again, thank you very much to Brittany and Andy for helping out today. Guys, brilliant. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And for everyone else, thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to getting the hundreds of thousands of tutorials that we're going to have to wade through.
Can't wait. Happy coding.
Good luck, everyone.
Enjoy. Bye.